Hi, welcome to Ronnie's Corner, and today we're going to talk about auctions. We've been talking about Christie's, we've been talking about Sotheby's this week, and auctions is actually one of the areas in which microeconomists have really made a lot of impact on the economy. So I want to talk a little bit today about how to design and how not to design an auction. It all started really to kick off from the work done by Roger Myerson, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics for his contributions to mechanism design. Basically, this is how do we design, we're going to talk about game theory next week. How can you design games, and auctions could be thought of as a game, in order to achieve particular goals? It was Myerson's work that actually made it possible for many economists today to make loads of money by consulting to different companies of how to design auctions. One good example is Hal Varian, who has a book, a very famous textbook in microeconomics named after him. And he's the one who's actually designing the auctions that Google do in order to allocate space and the ranking in the Google system when it comes to advertising. So Google ads are done by auctions, and these auctions are designed by Hal Varian. I want to talk about second price auctions, which is an auction that economists really like. So what happens in a second price auction? Suppose we're bidding, okay, and suppose we're bidding for an Illmatic LP. Okay, that's a vinyl record of a very famous album called Illmatic, and suppose we're bidding for that. Okay, and suppose two people are bidding. Person 1 is bidding something, person 2 is bidding something else. Suppose person 1 was bidding 12, person 2 was bidding 10. Under the second price auction, the winner is the one who bid the most, which makes sense. So person 1 wins, yay. But the price person 1 pays for the Illmatic LP is not what he bid, but rather it's the second price, so the second highest bid, which is 10 in this case. So this person is quite happy because they basically were willing to pay 12. Maybe if that's what they bid, they actually paid 10. So you can say, ooh, they're happy to the tune of 2. The next thing about the second price auction is that basically it's a bit of a no-brainer to think about how you should bid in this kind of an auction. This is why economists like this auction very much. So let's stay with the example of the Illmatic LP, and suppose that you really like this album to the tune of £12. So maybe this is your willingness to pay for this album. You wouldn't pay more, and you would be happy if you had to pay less, okay? So your true value for the Illmatic album is £12. So how would you approach bidding in a second price auction? The point is that actually the best thing to do is to actually bid £12. And this doesn't really matter how you think others will bid. So there's an argument here that says that £12 is the way to go, is the bid to bid in a second price auction. And the reason is, very simply, is that if you were to bid higher than... So I mean, the basic idea is that your bid does not influence what your price is, it just influences whether you win or not. So if you were to bid more than 12, you run the risk, suppose you bid 14 because you really want this album, but you run the risk that somebody would actually bid 13, and then you would end up paying 13, which means you would end up with -1. So that's not a good thing. So that's too risky, and you don't have to do that, because if you bid 12, you would win anyway whenever the bid of the other is smaller than 12. So the bid of the other person is smaller than 12, you're going to win. You would win the same thing when you bid 14, but you kind of insure yourself against basically somebody bidding more than what you value for it and ending up with a -1, which is not good. Okay. On the other hand, why would you ever bid less than 12? You don't want to bid less than 12, because if you bid less than 12, you're going to sometimes lose when somebody bids more than you. So suppose you bid 10 and somebody else bid 11. You could, in this case, you lose right? But you can avoid that because if you had bid 12, you would have won and you would have been happy. Okay, so this makes the second price auction very attractive because somebody who thinks about how to play in the auction, how to bid, there's very simple argument that says no matter what they think the others would do, they should bid their value. What is the problem with the second price auction? So actually this is a real story that happened in New Zealand in 1990, and they were auctioning off mobile spectrum. So basically this means that they were auctioning off frequencies for the use of mobile phones. This is a very lucrative thing to win. At the end of the day, there was one company that bid 100,000 New Zealand dollars. Okay, that's their bid. The second highest bid was 6 New Zealand dollars. So this company won by paying 6 New Zealand dollars, which is, very good for this company, very bad for New Zealand. So this is an example of what can go wrong with a second price auction, and what could go wrong is basically collusion. So when the bidders collude, they can decide how to manipulate their bids together to basically take advantage of this auction design. So the lesson here is that you have to think of a lot of real-world things that could happen when you design an auction. And this is why auction theory is a very fascinating topic and a very challenging one.